Hello there, Red Wing teachers. This is Mr. Kashi, coming to you with another Tony's Tech Tips. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk and walk through everything you would need to know about creating a quiz in Google Forms. I'm guessing we're kind of getting to the point here, probably in the next week or two, that you might want to give a quiz online. And this is how you would do it. So I'm going to show you a quiz exam that I've made. And just some things that I think might be helpful. So obviously you can title it up here, and then this side over here you would add a question, or if you can import questions, which I don't advise, or add a section, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. As soon as you title it, the first thing that I would do is I would come up here to this settings. Settings is going to be very important. So in general, I would make sure that this collect email addresses is checked. That would require them to be using that would submit their email address in case they don't put their name on the form. This would restrict it to just Red Wing public schools, and this would limit to one response. And some teachers might not want that on there if you want to give them a second chance, or second or third chance, or unlimited chances on maybe it's just an assignment that they can redo over and over again instead of an exam like this. Presentation, you can give them a progress bar, or if you would prefer to shuffle the question order, really doesn't matter here. This is more of like in an in-classroom setting where the questions order is shuffled. And then important over here is quiz. You want to make sure that this is toggled on, make this a quiz. So we can assign point values to the questions. And then down, this is for if we were in the classroom setting, we can lock the Chromebooks, basically that so they're only on this form and they wouldn't be able to be on any other websites. That does not work with PCs. That only works with Chromebooks. And then how you want to release the grade, either immediately after the submission or later after you take a look at it. So you want to click Save there. It's always good to make sure that you have first name, last name, and then I put the hour here, so it helps me organize things. Okay. Now that this is a quiz, there are point values. So if you go into the answer key, they're going to give you point. The default setting is 2 points. They're going to give you 2 points for putting your first name there. So I prefer not to do that, so I put it down to 0 here. Same thing for last name and hour. And then what I did here, hopefully you can see this break, I put this add a section, okay? And the reason I did that was I want them to do this before, and I make sure that all of these are required. There's a little toggle in the bottom right-hand corner of each question that they're required. And so what that means is that this is what they would see. They would have to do their first name, last name, and hour before they can move on to the actual exam. And I like putting that in just to kind of break things up and make sure that it's in smaller chunks for the students. And so then this gets into the multiple choice question part of the exam. So obviously you can add a question here. If you click on the question itself, it gives you lots of different options. So obviously you can type the question in here, or the prompt, or whatever you need to do. You can also insert a photo. You can upload a photo, you can take a picture, something out of your Google Drive, out of your photos, just anything from the internet that you have rights to. And then there are many different options for types of questions. You have short answer, paragraph, multiple choice, check boxes, drop down. All of these ones down here are not as conducive to maybe a linear scale, but to online quizzes. Multiple choice is the easiest to grade. Remember, if you're putting short answer, they're going to have to type in exactly what you put in as for the answer if you want this Google form to grade it for you. Then so for this case, we have multiple choice. I have the 4 options here. If I click on answer key, I can choose how many points that this is worth, and then I choose the correct answer right there. And then I click done. I'm going to require it, right? And a couple of things down here. Obviously, this is just to delete the question if I screwed up and want to start over. And this is an important time saver one here. It's just duplicate. I can duplicate the question. It'll just duplicate right below the original one here, and it'll save a lot of time if you have some questions that are very similar. Like if I wanted them to find a slope between two different points, I could just do this whole thing. I wouldn't have to retype it all. So then you go through and obviously create your quiz questions. These are all multiple choice, and for this quiz, there was a short answer portion of this as well. So then, once you're done, and then you can give them the form, which I'll go through a little bit later in this video, you'll start getting responses. And so this is kind of a summary. I'm going to kind of scroll through the parts of this quick to obviously not reveal students' names, but you get some very good statistics. The summary part is very helpful. The question in the individual tab is not as helpful in this case, but this just gives you your spectrum of scores. What's the best, in my opinion, is frequently missed questions. So you can see which questions they were struggling with. I'm going to scroll through there. So those are all the students' names. This is just the hour, how many are in each hour. Not as helpful here, but then it goes through each question, how many people got it right, how many people got it wrong, and which question, how many people chose each option. Now this is all 3 hours put together in this case, so you might want to split this up 1 per hour. You can just duplicate the whole quiz and have 1 for 1 hour, 1 for a different hour, all that kind of stuff. One helpful thing now that we have all of our responses in, if you click on this create spreadsheet, you can create that spreadsheet. I already did, and I deleted all the names here. So if you take a look here, it's the timestamp of when they submitted it. Then it will, because we clicked the email address, it'll give us their email address, their Red Wing Public Schools email address. Tells us the score right there, which is the most convenient. Their first name, last name, because we put it in. I have already sorted this by hour, so hopefully you can see that these are all my 1B students, 2B students, 1A students. So how I did that was I just went up here to this triangle, and I'm able to sort from A to Z, and it puts all my hours together. And then throughout this form, it goes through and tells me what each student chose for each one of those for those questions. That's not as helpful. I think that summary in the responses is much more helpful, but then this is their score that you can just put into the gradebook because the quiz graded it for you. There is one last thing that I'd like to share. So let's say if I wanted to put this into Google Classroom to give to the students. So let's say I create, in this case it doesn't really matter if it's an assignment or quiz assignment. So an assignment, and I add the form that I was just using. So you're probably going to be in the recent file here because I've been using that as of late. So if I add that in, if you have Google Classroom linked to Synergy, you can click this grade importing. This grade importing is going to be basically taking the results from the form, putting it into your grades in Google Classroom, and then Google Classroom will update Synergy. That is only if your grades are synced from Google Classroom and Synergy. I know that only applies to some of our teachers. So hopefully, I know this one got a little longer, but hopefully you had some questions about how to turn a Google form into a quiz, and hopefully this has answered most of them. And I wish you luck in creating online assessments.